This 10-kingdom confederacy, according to the prophet Daniel, will cover Europe. And in Daniel's great prophecy, which I shall explain to you more fully in a moment, shows very clearly that the 10 digits, or the 10 toes, of the great image that was given to Nebuchadnezzar in that most dramatic of dream visions had its fulfillment in this very end time. As we link the scriptures together, you will see conclusively that Daniel, having seen this remarkable image vision, saw that the feet contained 10 digits, or 10 toes. These are the final combinations of the image vision. And of course, because they are the toes of this great image, we're now talking about an end time prediction. The Lord Jesus clarifies this both in the book of the Revelation and in earlier references to his glorious return. Let me remind you of the remarkable dream vision of King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon. He saw a huge image, the image of a man. The interpretation that was given by the prophet Daniel concerned the future, the great future world kingdoms. Daniel told Nebuchadnezzar the head of gold represented the Babylonian Empire, followed by the arms and the chest of the Medo-Persian Empire. And then the middle part of the body was represented by the Grecian Empire. The final empire was to be the Roman Empire, with the two legs stretching down to the earth. And then, of course, the final reference to the feet of that great image, which would comprise of 10 kingdoms. These kingdoms would give their authority and power in the final stages of God's purpose to Satan for a very brief time. And this is the process, as we look back in history, that those kingdoms emerged. The Roman Empire, being the legs of the image, was to stretch its influence over many years, which indeed it has, from well before the time of Christ to this very moment of time. But we're now living in the final stages, the end time, when the feet of the image take our attention. And as I've already said, there are 10 digits at the feet of the great image. The very final stage of Nebuchadnezzar's dream vision was that a stone appeared that was not cut out by the hands of men. It was to hit the legs and feet of the image, and the image was to totally crumble. But the stone was to remain, and the stone was to cover the face of the whole earth. That stone, without one doubt, represents Christ and his glorious everlasting kingdom. Yes, that is very clear in the interpretation of the image of Daniel. Now, of course, how can we prove that this is the time of the end? A very brief survey of history will show you that we're living during a period of a 7-day week section of God's purposes. God introduced the 7 days week way back in the first chapter of Genesis. The Apostle Peter was given an amazing revelation by God, and he wrote that revelation down in his second epistle, where he states, "Beloved, be not ignorant of this one thing, that a day with the Lord is as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years as one day." So in God's time scale, one day of the 7 days, each day represents 1,000 years. This is reiterated in Psalm 90 as a second confirmation. If we now begin to date the scriptures from the time of Adam through to our time, we shall discover that we're now living at the end of the 6,000 years. For there were 4,000 years from Adam to Jesus Christ, and 2,000 years from Jesus Christ to this time. Those years are represented by the 6 days in God's time scale. These 6 days have been allocated for God's special dealings with mankind. We're now living at the end of the 6th day. The 7th day is about to dawn. This will be called the great day of the Lord, when Christ returns with his saints to the earth to subdue all the enemies of God, and at the same time for the glory of God to cover the earth as the waters cover the sea, according to the prophet. So, beloved, this is the time of the end. These are the end days of God's dealings with the humankind, one great glorious day of 1,000 years yet to dawn. And I recommend that you read Revelation chapter 20, and you will understand exactly what the final 1,000 years is all about. Now let's go back to the significant and dramatic events of the hour in which we now live. I pointed out to you that the 10-kingdom confederacy reported in Revelation chapter 17, referred to also in Revelation chapters 12 and 13, are now taking shape before our very eyes. Let me remind you again that 2 great world wars have been launched in a vain effort to bring this to pass. Satan has tried to preempt God's purposes. Think of the millions who have perished in these horrific wars, conceived, well, by Satan himself, to bring to pass the predictions of Jesus Christ, during which time he is given a limited control of the earth.
Just walk in the streets, death could take you away. It's never guaranteed that you'll see the next day. At night, the evil armies of Satan don't play. So defend the.
Is there anything at this point that his government could do or offer that would stop an attack?
Sure, he could turn over every single bit of his chemical weapons to the international community in the next week. Turn it over, all of it, without delay, and allow a full and total accounting for that. But he isn't about to do it, and it can't be done, obviously. But with respect to the credibility issue, look, I just answered that. I just gave you real evidence. Evidence that, as a former prosecutor in the United States, I could tell you I can take into a courtroom and get admitted. And I believe this man. I mean, I've personally tried people who've gone away for long prison sentences or for life for less evidence than we have of this. So I'm confident about the state of the evidence. Sure, he could turn over every single bit of his chemical weapons to the international community in the next week. Sure, he could turn over every single bit of his chemical weapons to the international community in the next week, in the next week, in the next week, in the next week.
Don't be surprised, son, I wasn't put here to stay at night. The evil army of Shaitan on play, so the family sits together.
Now, it seems that pretty much everyone wants a unique experience when they have a bit of leisure time, don't they? And here's an example of getting exactly that. Some Russian sunbathers had a bit of a shock when a massive military hovercraft powered its way onto their beach as they were sunning themselves. It's just extraordinary pictures, aren't they? Looks like something out of a comedy movie, but they were enjoying the white sands of Russia's Baltic coast, having to leap to attention when this hovercraft actually came right up onto the shore. A spokesman of the Russian Defense Ministry told a tabloid newspaper it was actually on a tactical mission in an area owned by the military. The newspaper, they pointed out that the military base is actually in a place called Chemelevka. That's several kilometres down the coast from the beach. Bit of an ooh, we got that wrong, I think.
Just walk in the streets, death could take you away. It's never guaranteed that you see the next day. At night, the evil armies of Shaitan don't play. So defend the family, that's the code to obey. But if I fall asleep and death takes me away, don't be surprised, son, I wasn't put here to stay at night. The evil army of Shaitan don't play. So the family sits